So no matter what it is, what you want to do, get a new phone, get a new car, house, support your family, build financial freedom. I had this long-term idea of traveling the world, and the long-term satisfaction that I had actually adding to the future life that I'm going to be having. And that's, in my opinion, pretty awesome. There's a saying that the only real income, the only real money that you're making is the money that you get to keep at the end of the month. So today I want to share with you my top 5 tips on save money, make it more effective, make it maybe even more enjoyable. A little background on me for everyone who is new here. My name is Danny, and I would say at this point I've been managing my money, saving money for around 10 years at this point. As you see, I'm still pretty young, but I've been doing a lot of side jobs from a very young age, and I developed over the years, especially I would say over the last 2, 3, 4 years, strategies, mindsets, and attitudes toward money that really helped me to save a good amount and to allow me, for example, like I did in the last year, travel the world, 16 different countries. I financed all of that by myself while still staying and keeping the principles, and I just want to share with you today because I think those ideas are extremely valuable, and I feel like a lot of people are selling themselves short by really underestimating that. So make sure to stay until the end of the video because there I'm going to share probably my most important idea towards that. So let's just jump right into it. My number 1 is you have to have a strong why, and as I've mentioned before, what is the reason why you want to save money? Because saving money is a process that makes sense over a long time span, and if you don't really know why you're doing it, to give up short-term pleasure like just spending money and pushing it out there, splurging it, it's going to be very hard if you don't know what the long-term satisfaction could be. So if there are things for you that have a high importance, like for example, build financial independence or support your family or being able to afford a specific thing that is just more maybe than just a new car or a house, maybe something that is very meaningful to you. Number 2 is gonna be track your expenses, and this is really the most effective thing that you can do. I personally on my phone have this app. It's called Journal Costs. It's a very basic app. I have my expenses in there. I have my incomes in there. So I put in like my 2, 3 income sources in there. I'm done with that. And then I put in my expenses. For expenses, for example, I have different categories. I have lifestyle, travel, clothing, monthly expenses, like for example, a gym membership, and investments. Whenever I do, like for example, get a new camera, get a microphone, that's where I put it in. And for example, when I buy food, I put it in there. When I buy something, new clothing, when I invest my money in somewhere, you really need to figure out where is all of your money going. And especially with those small expenses, or let's say smaller scale expenses, you're going to start to realize where you leave all your money, and you're maybe in some way subconsciously or consciously going to make decisions like, hey, I think I don't necessarily need to spend so much money on that, but first you have to figure out where the money is actually going. At first it was hard, but at this point I really enjoy to have a clear idea, and I can look a year back even and see, oh, okay, I paid so much for that. It's pretty cool actually. Okay, my number 3, minimize frequent small expenses and make the big expenses that you have, the big investments that you need to do, as effective as possible. So what I mean by frequent small expenses, let me give you an example out of my life. For example, I've came home from the big world trip of 10 months and I've been going to the gym 4 to 5 times a week, and I was taking the car. This costed me around $50 in gas, and at this point I got a bike. I really enjoy it. It's like 20-25 minute bike ride, and I take the car maybe once a week or not at all. We'll see how it's gonna go, and by doing so I will most likely save $50 a month. For a lot of other people, it's, for example, like let's say getting a coffee 4 to 5 times a week for $3. $3 is not a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, at this point I don't tell like cut out everything, don't get a coffee, don't go out to eat at all. I'm saying minimize. Really try to figure out where most of your money is going. If you get 5 times a week a Starbucks coffee for $5, dang, this is $100 a month. Can you really afford that? If yes, I mean, that's cool. That's cool. If not, hey, maybe you can save 50 bucks at this point. Those are things that you can really consider once you're tracking your expenses, once you have it in front of you. As I mentioned before, I had this long-term idea of traveling the world, and the long-term satisfaction that I had during the process of actually cutting out a few things, a few short-term pleasures, so to say, in my life. Overall, it was pretty empowering to know, like, hey, I have full control of myself, and by minimizing those small expenses, I'm actually adding to the future life that I'm gonna be having, and that's, in my opinion, pretty awesome. And the other thing is, make big investments as cost effective as possible. Like, for example, you're getting new electronics, like as I did. I got a new laptop, I got a new camera, I got a bunch of new lenses, and I'm just trying to look for my electronics, they're not on the desk. And I've got most of it used. I researched what type of electronics are not extremely new, but are still very good, maybe a year or two old. I got them for a good price, used, still in extremely good condition. I'm using them in a year's time or something. I can sell them, I can upgrade, and without really losing any money. I'm thinking actually on doing a separate video on that. So, and it's not only on consumer goods. Let's say you're doing a vacation and you're thinking about, hey, I'm interested in going to Eastern Europe, but I also want to go, let's say, to Paris. To go to Eastern Europe for 2 weeks is going to cost you as much as to go to Paris for 4 or 5 days. You decide what you want to do, or the same amount of time for half the price. I'm going to be traveling to Eastern Europe. I'm going to be showing you around there, so you may see if that's something for you. That's what we're going to talk on this channel a lot about as well. The next thing is, make it automatic. Once you figure out where your money is going, figure out a number. Let's say around 10% is a really good thing to aim for. If you can do more, it's obviously great. And put that money aside. Make an automatic bank transfer from one of your bank accounts to maybe a savings account, and let the money be gone. And really think of, hey, this is the only money that I can use. Those 90%, 10%, they are gone. You have no access to them, and this is gonna make saving money a lot easier. First, figure out where you're gonna cut it down, and then put the money aside automatically without having, to actively think about it. And my number 5, and as mentioned in the beginning, I would say the most important point is, over time, to really educate yourself on finance, on money, because this is something that you don't really get taught in school a lot about. This is something that most people have no idea about, and you can get a huge advantage if you're just gonna figure out how money works, if you can figure out how you can make money work for you. And what I mean by that is, for example, the $100 that you could save. If you're gonna invest those $100, for example, in the S&P 500, they have on average a return of 7% annually. So every year you're gonna get around, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, it's annual over the last 90 years. Within 20 years, you're gonna double your investment. So you're gonna put in around like 25,000 or something like that, and you're gonna get out more than 50,000. And you say, hey, in 20 years, I don't care what's gonna be in 20 years. But think of it like that. How cool would that be if your $100 theoretically it would double every month? And if you're gonna let them in there for 20 years, that is what's gonna happen. And there are a lot of ways to invest your money. That's why I'm saying educate yourself. There's a lot of great literature. When it just comes to the basics, I would recommend Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. When it comes to investing, great book from Tony Robbins would be Unshakeable. This is where I got this example from. If you're gonna invest around, I don't know, $500 a month, which is for most people quite a big amount, within, I believe, 30 years or something like that, you're gonna be a millionaire. If I'm not mistaken, 35, 40 years. This is all due to compound interest. You're gonna get interest on your money, you keep all the money in there, and the interest money that you get paid into your account gets interest on it as well. This is called the compound interest, and it can be very, very powerful. Raise your income over time by getting better at acquiring certain skills, And let's say your income is rising by 30%. You're getting a raise, you're getting a new job. In this case, for example, I would personally put 15 to 20% aside and use 10% to raise my standard of living. That could be maybe bumping up on the car, that could be doing that cool vacation you always wanted to do, but still putting the bigger amount of money aside. For most people, they're moving into a new apartment, they're getting a new car, and they're doing that cool vacation by using up all the 30%, and at the end of the month they're broke. And the thing here is, I think, is as mentioned before, in my personal opinion, it gives a lot more satisfaction to know that you're working up towards a big idea. If you're gonna put those 20% of money aside over the course of 20-30 years, you could become financially completely independent, have freedom to do whatever you want to do, while still using those 10-20% to have a good lifestyle, to not have everything at once, but short steps. Instead of getting the great new apartment now, get it in 5 years. Instead of getting the cool car now, get it in 3 years. Instead of pretending like you can afford it even though you're broke at the end of the month, do it in 10 years when you can afford it for real. And that is pretty much it. And with that, my name is Danny. I'm out of here. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and we see each other in the next one.
I'll be the last man standing here. I'm gonna rock you.